Amara had always been the kind of woman who carried storms inside her chest, yet showed sunshine to the world. At 28, she had already lived a life filled with struggle, jumping from one job to another, not because she lacked skill or determination, but because circumstances always seemed to conspire against her: layoffs, office politics, jealous colleagues, and sometimes just sheer bad luck. Each time she picked herself up, brushed off the dust, and tried again. But the one thing she could never brush off was her mother's voice. "Amara, you can barely hold a job for 3 months," her mother would say, shaking her head with bitter disappointment. "What man will respect you? What family will ever trust you? You are nothing but a burden." Those words cut deeper than hunger pangs and unpaid bills. Amara wasn't lazy. In fact, she worked harder than anyone she knew. But her mother had never once seen the fire in her, only the ashes of her setbacks. When her father died, leaving behind a modest inheritance and a disputed property in the old city, Amara thought at least her mother would stand by her side. Instead, her mother turned cold, siding with her brother, the uncle who always mocked Amara's struggles. They dragged her into court, questioning her right to inherit, questioning her stability, questioning her very worth. And now here she was standing in the suffocating silence of a courtroom, the air thick with judgment and betrayal. The judge presiding over the case was none other than Chief Justice Rahman, a man feared and respected for his sharp intellect and sense of fairness. Amara had prayed silently that the truth would speak for itself, but nothing prepared her for the moment her own mother took the witness stand. "State your testimony," the Chief Justice said. Her mother adjusted her shawl, lifted her chin, and looked directly at the judge, not at her daughter. "My lord," she began, her voice steady and firm, "my daughter, Amara, cannot manage her life. She jumps from job to job, unable to stay anywhere more than a few months. She has no stability, no vision, no discipline. She is reckless with money, irresponsible with commitments, and she cannot be trusted with property or responsibility." Amara's stomach twisted. Each word felt like a knife, a blade carved not by an enemy, but by the very person who had raised her. Her mother's voice grew sharper. "She can barely hold a job." Gasps filled the courtroom. Some people shook their heads in pity. Others whispered in agreement, nodding as if the statement sealed Amara's fate. Amara's knees weakened, but she clenched her fists at her side. She would not let her tears give her mother the satisfaction of seeing her broken, but inside she was breaking. The silence that followed her mother's words was deafening. Amara stood there, feeling the weight of every stare in the courtroom pressing down on her like chains. She could hear the whispers: neighbors, distant relatives, strangers who only knew her by reputation, agreeing with her mother's poisonous words. "She's right. I've seen Amara working at that office downtown. She didn't last 6 months. Poor girl. She's hopeless." No wonder her own mother testified against her. Who would know her better? The courtroom wasn't just a place of law that day. It was a theater of humiliation. Amara's lawyer tried to object, but the damage was already done. Her mother's testimony had painted her as unstable, unreliable, unworthy. Chief Justice Rahman sat back in his chair, his brows knitted together, his eyes fixed not on the mother but on Amara. She wondered what he saw. Did he see the failures her mother spoke of, or the fighter she was inside? When asked if she had anything to say, Amara stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but she spoke with honesty. "My lord, I will not deny that I've struggled with jobs. Life has not been kind to me, but I've never stopped trying. Every setback I faced, I picked myself up and tried again. I never depended on anyone, not even my mother." She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. "And if this court wishes to define me only by my failures, then perhaps my mother is right. But I know who I am. I am not unstable. I am not irresponsible. I am a woman who has fought every day to survive." Her words were raw, but they didn't have the sharpness of her mother's accusations. The courtroom remained skeptical. Some looked at her with pity, others with doubt. Her mother smirked faintly, as if victory was already hers. But then, something unexpected happened. The Chief Justice leaned forward, tapping his pen against the desk. His voice broke the silence. "Mrs. Siddiqui," he said, addressing Amara's mother, "you claim your daughter is irresponsible, unstable, and incapable of handling property. But before I accept your testimony as truth, I must ask, where were you when your daughter was struggling? Where were you when she was working 2 jobs to pay the family's debts? Where were you when she sold her jewelry to keep the house afloat?" The room shifted. Murmurs spread. Amara's mother stiffened, her smirk vanishing. Amara's heart pounded. How did the Chief Justice know? The Chief Justice's words cracked the mask her mother wore. "Answer me, Mrs. Siddiqui," he pressed. "Do you deny that Amara supported you financially after your husband's death, that she took responsibility for debts that were not hers, that she, in fact, was the reason this house was not already auctioned by creditors?" Her mother's face flushed. She stammered, I don't recall such details." But the Chief Justice wasn't finished. Documents were presented, bank transfers from Amara's account to her mother's, records of payments made in her name, proof of sacrifices she had never once boasted about. Gasps echoed again in the courtroom. The whispers had changed. So she was the one supporting them all this time, and the mother accused her of being irresponsible. Unbelievable. Her uncle shifted uncomfortably in his seat, realizing the tide was turning. Amara's lawyer, now emboldened, laid out the full truth. Amara had indeed worked multiple jobs, not because she couldn't hold them, but because she took on anything she could to cover her mother's expenses and keep the family afloat. Each time she lost one, she quickly found another, proving resilience, not irresponsibility. The Chief Justice stood, his robe flowing, his presence commanding. "Enough," he declared. His voice carried authority that silenced every whisper in the room. "I have heard enough character assassination disguised as testimony. What I see before me is not a failure of a daughter, but a failure of a mother who should have been her daughter's shield has become her knife. And yet, despite it all, this daughter continued to fight, to give, to survive." He turned toward Amara. His voice softened, but still carried weight. "She's been stronger than anyone in this room ever gave her credit for." Amara's chest tightened. Tears welled in her eyes, not of weakness, but of vindication. The courtroom erupted not in applause, but in stunned silence. Everyone knew the judgment had already been made in their hearts. The verdict was delivered in Amara's favor. She retained her rightful share of the property and inheritance, but more than that, she had reclaimed her dignity. Her mother left the courtroom with her head lowered, whispers chasing her like shadows. The woman who once commanded respect was now seen for what she truly was, a betrayer of her own child. In the weeks that followed, Amara used her inheritance not for luxury, but for rebuilding her life. She invested in herself, started her own small business, and poured her determination into making it succeed. Where once she had stumbled through unstable jobs, now she built stability with her own hands. Word spread quickly. Amara was no longer the girl who couldn't hold a job. She was a business owner, a fighter, and an inspiration. Her mother eventually came to her door, eyes filled with regret, lips trembling with words unspoken. But Amara no longer needed her approval. "I don't hate you, Mama," she said softly, standing tall. "But I won't let you break me again. My revenge is not in hurting you. It's in proving that every word you said about me was wrong." Her mother looked away, unable to face the woman her daughter had become. As Amara closed the door, she felt no bitterness, only freedom. Her sweet revenge was her success, her strength, and her unshakable dignity. And in the quiet of her heart, the Chief Justice's words still echoed. "She's been stronger than anyone in this room ever gave her credit for."